Sadika Johnson. So thank you so much for taking time out of your lunch hour to tune in to this webinar. Hopefully it's helpful and you get some things from it that are useful in the workplace. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about me. I am in education, been in the education field for about 14 years. In that time, I've been an elementary classroom teacher, been an adjunct faculty member for the University of Phoenix for a little bit over 10 years, teaching classes in the College of Education. I've worked as an education advisor, and about 6 years ago, I started my dream job that I didn't even realize was my dream job. And it was actually in the field of training and professional development. And I worked for a nonprofit agency that was supported and funded through the state of Alabama. And we provided professional development to early childhood educators. And so in that role, I figured out that that was what I wanted to do long term and what I loved doing. And it didn't feel like work at all. So fast forward a few years later, I got pregnant with my second daughter, and she was a preemie. She was a little bit over 2 months early. And so I decided to stay at home and care for her. And in that time, kind of thought of how I could do what I love doing, but on my own terms. So about a year ago, I decided to just step out there on faith and start my own staff development and training company. And so far, it has been an interesting journey. It's been very rewarding. It's been slow but steady. And so hopefully, Staff Learning Innovations will continue to grow and feed my passion for this field. So that's all that is about me and important there. Um, like I said, there are features where you can chat, and there are going to be a few opportunities for you to share with the rest of the participants and myself some of your thoughts and opinions about things. This first chat slide, if you could just type in the chat area what industry or field you're in, and then what position, just so I can get a feel for who's on the call and just the diversity of the participants. Okay, so we've got Larissa in education, Antoine in manufacturing. Okay, and I see that Akia's logged on. Hey, Akia. So I just wanted to do that just to kind of gauge who's on the call. And it's my belief that soft skills transfer to any industry and area that you're in. So I think that the content of this webinar and the information will be transferable for everybody that's participating. So thank you for sharing. Okay, we got telecommunications. Okay. So just to run through the objectives, what we're looking at, the outcomes of this webinar. First thing we want to do is define what exactly is soft skills. What does that mean? Identify some of the challenges that we had in developing those skills. Examine the impact on investing in soft skills. And then identify some practices and strategies to develop those skills. Okay, so what are soft skills exactly? We hear this term a lot, and especially in the last decade or so, companies and organizations more than ever are investing in what we call soft skills. And it's basically an umbrella term to encompass everything that ranges from interpersonal and intrapersonal behaviors that impact the way we approach the world. So in saying that, interpersonal skills have to do with how we interact with other people. And then intrapersonal skills have to do with how we interact with ourselves, how we're able to manage our own emotions, are we able to be self-reflective. So those skills and those competencies are so important in today's workforce that you hear it all the time. Communication, conflict resolution, being a team player. Some of those skills actually are internal, innate skills, like having intrinsic motivation, being resilient, being confident. But some of those skills are actually external and can actually be honed in on and developed, even if internally you're not strong in that area. So we're going to look at soft skills versus hard skills. What are the differences? Because a lot of times we see a lot of focus on hard skills and not so much soft skills. But I always say the easiest way for me to understand soft skills versus hard skills is that hard skills are what get you the interview. And then soft skills is what lands you the job and keeps you successful in the job. So looking at this chart, we can see that soft skills again are interpersonal and intrapersonal, the way you interact with other people. Hard skills are more technical. Okay, so they're specific to your job in your industry. Soft skills can be very intangible and difficult to measure because it's internal. They're easy to observe. You can see when somebody is competent in soft skills, but it's hard to put your finger on it and actually measure it. Whereas technical skills are tangible, they're measurable. So you can gauge if somebody, for instance, types 100 words per minute. You can put a measure on that. But you can't exactly measure if somebody is an effective communicator. Soft skills are often innate or natural, but they can also be strengthened through practice and development. And I think one of the myths of soft skill development is that if you don't have it, you just don't have it. Well, that's true. It can actually be built and developed, even if naturally you're not well versed there. Okay, technical or hard skills are usually formally taught. So we usually get them in some post-secondary setting like a trade school or a 4-year college or university. The wonderful thing about soft skills and the important thing is that they are transferable to any job. So if you leave one sector or industry and choose another, you are still going to be able to, if you can communicate, if you can resolve conflicts and be a team player, you can do that in one setting, you can do that in the next setting. Hard skills, however, on the other hand, are specific to that job and that industry. And then lastly, in terms of how it relates to brain development and neurologically, soft skills are more of a right brain dominant. And then hard skills are more left brain dominant. Okay, so just to get your take on soft skill and interpersonal skills, in the chat area, if you would tell us what soft skill or competency you find to be most important. Okay, we got listening skills, definitely important. And when we name some of these soft skills, we see that they are not only important in the workplace, but they transfer to our personal lives. Empathy, definitely. Learning how to understand somebody else's emotions and what they're experiencing. Okay, anything else? And throughout the course of the webinar, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat area, and at the end of the webinar, we will revisit those questions and we'll try to answer them. Okay, so we got listening and empathy. Okay, this slide shows a study that was done in 2015, and basically the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development went in and surveyed about 100 HR professionals to ask them what are some of the most critical skills needed to be successful in a job, and of those skills, what are the most challenging to develop. And right there at the you can see is communication skills. And it's interesting to note that generally when you think about issues or challenges that arise in the workplace, they usually always get to the core foundation of a lapse in communication or some type of misunderstanding, because communication skills are really at the core of all soft skills. If you know how to effectively communicate, you know how to be a team player. You know how to provide feedback. You know how to resolve conflict. So it's really important to note. And most of the time when a company contacts me or reaches out regarding a training that they need, it usually falls into communication skills because it all really starts there. So you can see that they noted that that was one of the most critical soft skills needed to be successful, and also the most challenging to develop. So for several different reasons, there are roadblocks to developing these skills. And we're going to talk about what those roadblocks are and how we can overcome them. Okay, so again, there are some challenges, which is part of the reason that companies and organizations don't always invest in soft skills, because sometimes they think it's a lost cause, okay, because there are some roadblocks there. But we're going to talk about how to overcome those. The first one is a lack of emotional intelligence. One of the things said in the chat was empathy. The soft skill of empathy is important. And that's really a component of having an emotional IQ. And everybody doesn't innately have a high emotional IQ. So that's one of the number one challenges in developing soft skills or having a workforce or a team of people that are competent in that area, is that emotionally they just aren't inept. They just don't have the skill set or the natural ability to manage their emotions to understand and recognize other people's emotions, and to be able to respond accordingly. So that's where we start first with the challenge. So knowing that there are people that just don't have that should be an indication that that's something that needs to be tapped into, and we need to provide people with strategies and things that they can do to strengthen that. Okay, another big one are the technological advancements that we see and that we experience and take part in. Most of our communication now is not face-to-face human interaction. It's either done by way of phone, text, email, social media. And so for that reason, that diminishes some of the skills that we innately have. Even people that are so-called people persons have diminished some of those skills because they spend most of their time on these devices and they're not having the types of interactions that we had 20, 30 years ago. Especially when we start talking about generationally, we have a new workforce that's coming in. Millennials have grown up in an age where they have not had to hone those skills. They have not had to practice those skills. They have only known the cell phone, social media, email. You know, many of us on this webinar are probably Generation Xers, and so we grew up in a stage that there wasn't much technology. Technology advanced as we grew up. And as we came into young adulthood, we then had more technology, but we actually had an opportunity to build people skills because we had to. And some of our workforce has not had to, and so they come into it at a deficit because they don't have those experiences. So we definitely have to make sure that we are preparing younger generations to actually have interpersonal skills and know how to interact. Okay, so the changing workforce demographic builds on what we were just talking about. The millennials are coming in with great hard skills. They have the technical skills. They're more educated formally. But then on the flip side, they don't have the interpersonal skills because that's not what has been a focus. And so because of that, we're seeing a change in the face of how the workforce looks. We also, on the flip side, have an older demographic of workforce that are retiring later and later. And so there is a breakdown generationally in the millennial, and then that individual that probably would have been retired 20 years ago but can't afford to do that. So these are two very different individuals. And if we don't invest in how to bridge that gap, then we are going to have challenges in terms of them collaborating and working together. Then we have a sector of the demographic that are leaving or switching careers. And so those people might come from a more technical field and just don't have the competency because they haven't had to. They might be leaving the technical field, going into more of a human services industry. And so they need the training and they need development in how to interact with one another. Okay, and then lastly, I think that this is the biggest challenge that we face, is there is more focus and investment on the hard skills. companies and organizations traditionally just don't spend money or time investing in soft skills. They do so for hard skills and for many different reasons. When we think about even societal norms and we think about where we put emphasis, I can think back to when I was in college and people would ask me, what is my major? And I would say education. And it's like, oh, okay, that's nice, I guess. And then if you were, let's say, an accounting major or an engineering or computer science major, people were more impressed with that because we put more investment. We have a perspective that technical skills takes more brain power, more, more cognitive stimulation. And so for that reason, people that major in, human services industries or humanities or the arts are not always looked at as, as bright. And so there's just a focus on hard skills more so than there is on the soft skills. Another point to the focus and investment on hard skills is that most industries have some type of either certification or licensure or requirement that say that you have to have so many continuing education credits toward these technical skills in order to stay certified, stay licensed. And so companies and organizations are required to spend the money to invest in those skills. There are no agencies or organizations that mandate the training of soft skills. So for that reason, money goes into hard skills and technical skills and not so much the flip side on the soft skills. But more and more research is being done and showing that people that are in the arts, that are in the humanities or the human services field and have the soft skills do better and fare better and are more successful even if they cross into a more technical job because they have those skills that will sustain you throughout a career. Okay, in the chat, I want you to just be reflective for a second and think about the very best company or organization you've ever worked for. And then I want you to think about what made it the best. And tell us in the chat area what made that company or organization the best place you worked at. Okay, I saw some people typing, but I haven't seen anything come up. While Antoine's typing, I'll just say that one of the best organizations I worked for or schools I worked for, I felt like it was the best because I felt as though my supervisors, management really cared about how I developed and who I became as a person. Okay, Antoine said a family atmosphere. The Air Force was like a family atmosphere, which is important because we spent so much time at work that we wanted to feel that way. Okay, Larissa said I was treated well cared about and the lines of communication were open. Definitely. You want to feel valued, you want to feel cared about, and those are the things that set organizations and companies apart are the investments that they make in you. And so when we look at investing in soft skills, it's not just about the company doing well. It's about the company caring